Hey, all you weirdos. The following Green Lantern review is a condensed version of the review that we have on our weekly DC Comics podcast that comes out every Sunday night, by the way. And if you want to hear a more expanded deal of this, which includes more of the talk of the backup, this review you're about to listen to, we touch on the backup a bit. It's more about the main story. But if you want to hear more about the backup, the guy Gardner, Omega Bandman backup, then please check out our weekly DC Comics podcast. You can get the link to the podcast in the description of this video. And also, I will be posting the video version of that podcast later today. So you can pick and choose how you want to do that. But I hope you enjoy the video, and away we go.
Weird science
is the revolution.
Green Lantern number 10, written by Jeremy Adams. So how dare you call this a Joshua Williamson section when we have a Jeremy Adams book in here?
It's the J's, right?
The J section.
You wear your J's.
You got the art by Sermonico, Amanke Nahulapan, Ramil Fajardo Jr., and Dave Sharp for our main story. We'll get to the other creative team when we get to the backup. But we have Hal Jordan back on Oa trying to figure out what the hell is going on with all these weird lanterns and all their emotional shifting powers. And Joe Mullen will hopefully get to the bottom of it and explain everything to Hal Jordan. I just wish that Hal Jordan would tell them, hey, all these lanterns you said that we should be afraid of because they shut our rings down, I don't have to worry about that because I got a special ring. And I should have special rings for all of you, but I'm not going to tell you about it until you realize on your own.
Nobody's telling anybody anything. And the thing that I get here is, number one, I realize why the Titans they took the place of the Justice League, because if you go with Hal, like, these guys are dumb. Hal is there. Everything that has led up to this, including him quitting the Corps because of the United Planets, then getting quarantined, then going and seeing all this thing, he still thinks that they have to go talk to the head, like, oh, no, I think they're in trouble. And they're like, no, they're bad. And he's like, I don't believe it. Do you have evidence? I'm like, shut up.
Hal has moved on from the Green Lantern Corps because it's not his Corps anymore. I don't necessarily believe that he didn't trust the United Federation, but the idea that the Guardians entrusted them, I think he thinks, like, they're on the up and up. The Guardians won't, give it to anybody.
They also did something on the side if things went wrong. Sinestro was talking bullshit. He ended up seeing bullshit, and he was quarantined on Earth. The minute he goes out, he sees Green Lanterns. They end up changing colors and spectrums. They grab him prisoner to Oa to go see them, and he's like, I don't know. I think everybody's on the up and up. And it's annoying because we know better anyway. And that's one of the problems.
We've seen Premier Theros doing bad shit ever since War
World.
What I'm
saying.
So we know
it, so it gets more annoying. But yeah.
But also, I will say that maybe Hal, he might not realize too, because the idea that he was taken capture, was supposed to be brought to Oa. He has a ring, and that's against the law.
Yeah, well, again, though, every lantern, the lanterns that took him in were ultraviolet. Like, nothing feels right. And when he sees them, and they're in the underground, they're like,
they were not ultraviolet.
Well, they grabbed them, and they were like ripping people apart at points. When they ended up having all these things, and when he gets there, Joe, Kyle, they're in an underground deal resistance, and he still thinks that they should go to, I think they might be on what are the evidence? I'm like, come on, you don't have to play this. I think that he would have put 2 and 2 together by now. Also, he would have probably been worried about others, as they then explain. Finally, he seems to get it, but puts a lot of people in danger, and it's just a weird play. Well, as this also, if me and you are there, and you have Hal Jordan with us, and again, I think at one point Hal's going to say, by the way, can we find out if Shush is related to Tommy Elliott? Like, Batman's been bugging me about this, but when you have something where it's spelled out, I know that we know more. But when they say, don't worry, Hal, we have somebody on the inside giving us info, wink, wink. Then he sees Jessica Cruz. Holy shit, she's bad. They're like, God damn it, she's the one on the inside.
She's the one on the inside.
Like, you are so dumb. Like, really?
Honestly,
it's the inside.
Again, I don't want to play devil's advocate for Hal all the time
because it's so weird, though. Like, I can't get it, right?
The idea that nobody is telling anybody anything, like we have a man on the inside.
Odd.
Maybe he actually just thought it was a man on the inside. So Jessica Cruz, that threw him for a loop.
Yeah, and maybe it was. He's like, I wasn't thinking. Also, like you said, this is one of those instances where you think that the idea of not telling, like the idea of all of a sudden me and you find out who the killer is. Oh my God, it's Laurie Strode. Does that make sense there? Because that's the name.
No, it does not. But
it's Johnny Strode.
Okay. Laurie's other brother you never know about.
Yeah, it ends up at the end. It was the jealous brother who was, sent off.
No. John was her son in H2O, so maybe you can say that even though his last name wasn't Strode.
Well, it was it was his uncle that they ended up putting in
Michael
an orphanage at one point. But it's the opposite. It's the twin of Michael Myers. You see? It works. But the idea that I know who it is, one thing I have to tell you. But in the movies, I won't tell you. It's almost like the end of oh my God, who is that girl? And all of a sudden, the idea that it possibly was, I'm shush and Batman's going to be dead. Like that. This is so over the top, but then they tell him the things like 10 minutes later. Like, it's weird. Even at the point where they're not, you have Joe Mullins. I mean, again, a lot of people said that they don't like Joe Mullins in this, and I agree at a bit where Jessica Cruz being the girl on the inside, I think it might have worked better with Joe because Joe could have said, listen, I have no connection with that Earthlander. I was, off in the deal. But
I agree. That could have worked better.
I think it would have worked a little better. But yeah, but he doesn't have that much of a connection, but he likes it. They're talking. And instead of saying, we're going down the shaft, she pushes him into this open pit and then explaining it all the way down. Why are you playing it like this? It's so weird.
No matter what, you can't use your ring. I'm going to throw you down the shaft. Oh, no, not even throw. I'm just going to push you when you aren't looking at me. Down the shaft, you're going to fall like a million miles down to the center of Ella. And as we're falling, we're going to say, hey, the air current's going to slow us down a bit, and we have to take through the shaft. And she says it right as the shaft. Like, there's no way that Hal is going to be able to reach back to where that shaft opens up to the left to go grab it.
And she says that you can't use your rings and then almost plays this off as a test. Oh, you're good. But if he fails the test, you're saying you're dead. Why would you do this test?
She has all the information. She's like, oh, we need the world's greatest the universe's greatest Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, really pushes him down. And even that, we have a girl on the inside. All he has to say is, listen, we have Jessica Cruz. He knows. I mean,
which is funny because even if they're trying to fool us and not Hal Jordan, we've already seen that she's a part of that from the inside from the previous issue.
And I think you got that. That's why Hal comes off so crazed to me of the idea that he's so dense because we've seen so many things. And then Jeremy Adams, he wants to show Hal as a guy who I'm not going to believe that without evidence. They're the authority.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, it kind of goes again because Hal's always that, loose cannon. And so that's why it doesn't work as much for me of him saying, no. He seems, I hate to say the term, he seems like a simp. That, no, we got to go talk to them. He doesn't have a connection
simping
to
for
them.
a government.
If he was simping for, Ganthet, and he said, well, I've that would have been cool. Like the idea of, I know I had problems with Ganthet, but I know he wouldn't do this. But he has no idea about these guys because he quit. And it just felt too much to that play of, because we know they're bad. Just get to it. I think that he would have known by this point.
Even when we see the resistance, we got Salak and 2-6, which 2-6 was a great callback, I think, for this whole thing. And I'm like, oh, there's that. And there's Kyle in the corner in shadows.
Yeah, what is he doing?
Indian style, pretty much. Or, I'm sorry, cross-legged. Can't see stuff.
Yeah. Oh, my God, you're canceled.
Yeah, but no.
Cross-legged.
Cross-legged, exactly. But the idea, though, in my mind, Kyle Rayner is the greatest Green Lantern. Always has been, as far as I'm concerned. But the idea that he's just whimpering and has to go and hug Hal when he sees him, I think Kyle, for the most part, might be kind of useless for the storyline for how he's reacting right now.
And then what I like is the Keanu Reeves. I had the tweet. They do the hover hands, right? They're hover hands, and they're not grasping each other. So that battle's very weird.
Hal, I think, a little off. Exactly, but Kyle, he's just weird. He's pretty much just going to tackle him. It looks like
Hal, something's wrong. The emotions, they're wild. They're not contained. Hug me, bitch. And he goes to grab him. But like you said, some of these are
interesting idea for what he's talking about. The idea of the emotions aren't contained. I'm like, does this mean more like you're connected to the white power ring, like you used to be, for how you're feeling the emotions?
And here's the thing, too. When we get to the end, I think that might be the play with what they say is coming next and things like that, even though it's not really set up, but we'll get to that. But in this, again, you have then Simon Baz, who just kind of returns, but Kyle in the shadows, very odd, odd, but weeping. And then he comes in and they're, trying to explain what's going on. And Joe, she did go back to the city enduring, always throws us off. It's not the enduring city, Eric, it's the city enduring. And it's like the event Leviathan. And she heard something was going on, so she came back, ran into a bunch of different lanterns. They seemed to be, pretty harsh. They were changing their colors. And a lot of veterans, like a Guy Gardner, they were sent away to go do kind of like sus things, and their rings were coming back. And so they started this
pretty
resistance.
Much it seemed like all the veteran Green Lanterns who might be opposed with the United Federation, they're like, let's send them on suicide missions.
Exactly. That's what they did. And then they start recruiting just wackadoos. They seem to like that. And nobody's really going through training, and Kilowog's dead. So you have all that stuff going on. And in that, though, I just want to ask you as a deal, because the one big play is we can't use our rings. And I know, like, some people, wherever you go with it, but they do have their uniforms on, and a lot of times those are ring-based. But the idea of they have these it seems like Jeremy Adams is doing too much to explain that they can track their rings. The idea of, because he needs
ring
to
hunters.
he needs to have these ring hunters. But a lot of times what I've kind of got is, you could just know where the rings are. This is when you send them out to other reaches of space. You have to know where they are, not just when they, tap in. That it does have a bit of a tracker and things. But she says when we use the power, that's when they know we're there, and then they come and get us. I think it's a little wonky. I thought it was a little wonky.
Modified Manhunter armor as well. The Lord Theros' personal guard. So it's a lot like a Empire shit going on here.
It is, and it's a fancy way to do something that it didn't feel like it really was real. Like, it's not something that I thought, but it's cool.
You have the ring hunters who can sense, when the rings are being activated. I can see the idea of not being able to actually see where the rings are if you want to, because Salak is the main computer man, and he is with the resistance. So I can see him trying to hide shit if he's still playing nice.
They should say that, and it's weird then, yeah.
When you then have the personal guard of Lord Theros who has source staffs that can turn off the rings, and they look like manhunters. I'm like, you might be doing a little bit too much for this,
right?
Because, I understand that you want to be big and be cool, but I don't think, especially with what we have on Oa, is the source power battery at this point. You have all of this, which a lot of people didn't read Jeffrey Thorne's, Lanterns, or even consider it canon anymore. Yeah. But you have this going on here, which at the end of Jeffrey Thorne's, it looks like it changed a bunch of Green Lanterns to be different emotional spectrums as well.
That's what they're dealing with, yeah.
You gotta explain more of this in my mind than weird Manhunter personal guards, pretty much the Imperial Guard, as far as I'm concerned.
And how, the best way I can explain it, I think it's kind of cool. I kind of, but it feels like a try-hard version of this. The idea where,
especially when you bring magic into it,
and it starts to feel a lot like you always bring it up. This feels like me and you in the backyard as kids, and I'm like, well, I got ring hunters, and I say, oh, that, and you're like, yeah, well, I have magic guys who end up being able to do this and sense that. It kind of seems all thrown at you. Then also the spectrum, like you said, something that isn't just made up here. It was from the Jeffrey Thorne deal, and even the idea. I like the one guy where he's like, hey, do we have our volunteer? And he's like, oh, what the fuck's going on? And then you end up having them, he gets turned into a Red Lantern, gets fired up, and just runs into the wall as they seem to be trying to unlock things that way, and it just seems very odd.
Well, that's the thing. It's the idea that you have this Source Lantern going on. You're looking for volunteers to pretty much just go in there and become one with the Source. I imagine they're trying to unlock the White Ring at this point.
Probably, and that's probably why, as this goes on, you're probably going to see Kyle lose it even more. He is because the idea also with that, this is where the things are kind of cool, but maybe have Hal ask Kyle a little more, because Kyle is not right. Kyle comes out and is like, oh my God, the emotions. And he needs what did they do to him? What's going on? And we don't know. It must be something connected to the Source. Something really explain something, because I do think that as they unlock more and more, he's tapping in, and I do think at one point here, though it's a Hal Jordan book, and you claim that Kyle Rayner is the greatest Lantern of all time, I do think we're going to get a page where he's going to, boom, there's going to be explosion, White Lantern, bitch, and take care of shit. And I think it'll be awesome. But in the meantime, you have Theros, who's desperately trying to unlock the Source. But it's funny, it's the idea of a guy just running in, and he can survive. And then it seems like that's to deal with Kelly.
Because the thing is, Kelly is there experimenting on to try to unlock something because of her, whatever Corona Gauntlet experiment they had with her, Bendis Gauntlet that they gave her for being a Teen Lantern, which was destroyed during Jeffrey Thorne's run. The one cool thing, though, with the idea of these volunteers and stuff, because Theros seems to have a little bit of power with the Source Lantern as well. I don't know how he's actually using it at this point in time. Other Lanterns are able to change their spectrum, so I'm guessing he has something to do with that.
And he puts his hand on the guy, right?
Oh yeah, he puts his hand on the guy and makes, because it looks like he's a little wary
about running into the Source. I'm telling you,
when you do that, you have the idea, you have been chosen to lead. I know you want to serve more than anything. And he activates the orange, Abra to him, so he just sees it's mine, and he has to run towards him. That is actually a really cool aspect.
I thought the colors could have been better. I actually thought he turned into a Red Lantern the way I looked, and that he was fired up. And you're right, it's the orange. It's mine. And what I like about it is he knows how to do it, where he does give, it's almost like a trigger. As that talk beforehand, to then hit it at the right point for him to yell, and you're right.
You are greedy for the cause.
And just runs right in, just blows up. And they do mention, you do end up seeing Larfleeze. They talk about, and it's kind of a Star Wars thing of, man, how'd they go? Oh, I heard the shit that went down when they tried to get the battery there. So that's cool. And I'm sure that at points, they're going to free him, and we'll have all these things.
The one thing I do hope to see in this run, the idea that we do have this Source energy that, John had left behind from the Godstorm, but what we've been without for a long time, ever since, I forget whose run it was, but it was during the White Lantern aspect of Kyle Rayner when he's doing that, and he had to replenish. It was during it might have been Tomasi, it might have been somebody else, I forget who, but the idea, though, that he had to replenish the Source Wall emotional spectrum reservoir that was within the Source Wall, he had to pierce through with his White Lantern power, and he actually had to gather up, it seemed like, all the other entities that made up the different spectrums. We've been without those entities ever since he replenished the emotional spectrum reservoir, so I want to see them brought back, especially with the idea that the other batteries are being exploited across the universe.
Yeah. And it's a crazy big story.
And he actually might be able to have them reborn. And let's just say Kyle, he's drawn to this thing. He's not even a volunteer. He runs through this and everybody thinks he's dead. Comes out as a White Lantern, and with him might be like the new reborn versions of the entities.
I'd love it. It's like an explosion. That's why.
Yeah.
And I do think at a point, like if this plays out the way I kind of would think it would, at one point they're going to have to strap Kyle down to a chair. Like he's going to I got to get there. It's strong. And he's going to go completely bonkers. But they do seem to have Kelly because that's where they end up seeing, like, hey, and you have Simon. I found her. I got her. We can get her. And they go, and it's Kelly. Crazy. A lot of people didn't seem to like it. I don't mind. I actually think it's kind of cool. We like Kelly. We didn't think they did anything with her, but we did like her. It's a shame.
Especially the idea that they had before, because I really thought, like, Bendis did nothing for her backstory. Like, hey, I'm in a landfill. There was an alien that came down, gave me this thing. And it was this experiment.
Yeah,
I say experimental, but yeah, exactly. But the idea, though, it was so closely looked like Krona's Gauntlet that Hal used during his Renegade era that I wanted to see the idea. Like, she thought she was a part of something big, like the Green Lantern Corps picked her, like she was for something better. I wanted this to be something that a villain of the universe had taken and tried to do it, and it was actually this like awful thing.
Are you talking?
No, that's the antimatter universe. That's a different universe.
Eric, exactly.
But the idea, though, that she thought she was picked for something and it was just actually like a criminal intent, something bad. I wanted that to be something, but we ended up just destroying the gauntlet when Joe needed to use it during Jeffrey Thorne's deal.
And I'll even point out that, and because we did like her, people were like, oh my God. And it is true. She's like Riri Ironheart with Krona's Gauntlet, but that's fine. I thought she could have been pretty cool. The thing, though, is, and I was talking to somebody.
Though. It wasn't Krona's Gauntlet, though. It was something very similar.
It was Alien. He never got around to really doing a lot with it, and that was the problem. But I talked to a guy because Jeffrey Thorne, it was just announced he's going to be doing an X book. I think it is X-Force, where he's going to be doing that. And I had a video, and I was talking like, man, I didn't like the Green Lantern run. I was confused for the most part. Not everybody, ended up reading it, but we're still dealing with a lot of stuff. Almost seeming like we're trying to fix some of the stuff, trying to meld it in. This guy actually, and he was being very nice. This is a guy who said that Jeffrey Thorne run got him back in the comics. I'm like, that's awesome. But I don't see it. But he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. They're not even dealing with stuff with Jeffrey Thorne now in the Word Journal or this. I'm like, that seems like that's all they're doing in Word Journal. And then this as well.
Jeffrey Thorne and this, it's all of the stuff leading out of like Jeffrey Thorne's book in my mind.
And so again, though, if you're using it in a way that elevates things, fixes some stuff, because even having this source and then tying it into Kelly, because it'd be cool to have Kelly. And if you don't, it'd be cool to just have her do something and then end it.
Just the idea of having Kelly Quintella here is that we never saw her like outside of in a coma from what happened to her previously. Like you need to give her an ending at least to a story.
And that's what I'm saying. If this is the last we see, I actually appreciate that. And the idea that you can kind of think that, read between the lines of the idea when she had that gauntlet, she also was able to hack shit. She was doing some, like, because Bendis, and the idea of it is funny. I think Bendis just fudged shit to just get it going. And I think Jeremy Adams at this point is trying to make some of that maybe make sense as we go forward with her and why they want her, why they're doing experiments on her might be pretty cool. And that's something that I was not upset about. I actually thought that was neat. And Simon's a guy who should be, like, he's big with Kelly and with the Jeffrey Thorne deal, especially, and Hal sees it. Hal didn't have much of an interaction, but he doesn't like seeing a little kid experimented on. But it is, again, the idea of if you activate your ring, whether or not Hal has put together, because he doesn't seem to be able to put anything together, he reacts of, I have to save this kid.
We always have a choice.
Yeah, I get it, but they've said to you that all this work they've done,
you are going to ruin everything, Hal, because you're going to go balls to the wall, jump in like this, and you have no regard for what they've been working on.
I thought it was a dick move.
And I'm telling you, everybody gets their powers taken away when these other ones come in, it seems like, because they have to try to help Hal. Hal's the only one with a working ring.
I don't think Hal has put that together. And if he did, it's still bullshit. Because Hal's saying, we always have a choice to go in. You know who else is going to only do one choice? Is all your friends around you. They're going to go with you. even though they know they shouldn't, and they might die because they're with you. You're their guy. And he was a complete dick. There was no reason he should have done this. This was so not even out of the ordinary for Hal. It just seemed like just a really dick move to ruin everything that they set up.
Telling them that his ring can work because it has no connection to this power battery.
Because if he did know, he's keeping the idea that there's other rings on Earth. There's
that are meant for them.
Yeah, that are meant for them. So when he goes down, he's just going to town, and they're fighting.
Even when we go to town, they still get away with Kelly. Not the heroes. The bad guys get away with Kelly, and we're just left going through the science cells trying to save Razor and another of the United Planet Lanterns.
It was that bird guy who took Hal in. That was the guy who was kind of the weird thing.
We're going to save him to get information from him.
The progression of Simon Bass, you get the girl, we're getting out here, not without the girl. Simon goes and grabs her. I got her, let's go. Gets blasted from behind, throws her in the air, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I actually thought that he might have grabbed her again. But then when they're running, I'm like, oh, he doesn't have her. They got her. I'm like, what happened? That was all you had to do. But yeah, they still have Kelly. So that sucks. I wish that after all this and Hal being a dick the way he did it, that they at least got Kelly, but they didn't. So they're going to have to kind of go. And I kind of think it's cool with the Manhunter tech. Now, is this Manhunter tech even connected to the Manhunter tech that ended up on Earth that was being sold and stuff? It's such a weird deal, but
it just looks like modified Manhunter armor.
Yeah, it's just that kind of got pushed aside too, especially now that he has an actual ring. But he's doing his constructs. He's having some fun. But when they were walking, I'm telling you, I'm a dummy. When they're walking away, I'm like, where's Kelly? Simon has that other guy. He dropped her. I mean, he literally just dropped her, and they grabbed him, ran. But they get Razor and get that guy. Hey, that guy, he was there. We can get some. They're gonna, interrogate him about info. And when they talk to him, he gulps there. Gulps. Just a crazy deal because then you have Jessica involved with that inside deal. We find out that they do still have Kelly, and then the idea is, hey, the Manhunter guys, the Ring Hunter, they went. But they weren't able to capture any of these lanterns.
Well, the thing is, too, Jessica Cruz is ordered to go to the Unseen.
And then she has to go to the Unseen.
Which is the magical aspect of the United Federation things. They have been putting the quarantine around Earth. And Jess is saying, hey, maybe we should get the Unseen involved. They're already doing this quarantine thing. If we have them looking for, the other Earth lanterns, it might be too much for them. Do not question me, Lantern Cruz. Just go over there and do it. And the idea when she does go over there, they're like, your request has been foretold, and we have answers. And I imagine myself, when he says the resistance has been found, I'm like,
it's right in front of us.
No, I'm saying that, but what are you about to do to these people, Jessica Cruz, to keep your friends safe?
I know. Well, again, here's the weird thing, and could we get a point where we're told, because I keep thinking of the War Journal book, where all of a sudden we get an editor's note, the War Journal book takes place a little before, because I swear, what is the quarantine kind of getting a little, it seems to me like that would be Jon Stewart then able to get off of Earth. It's a weird play to have, the guys who are here, who are the magic guys to track rings away, they're also doing the quarantine. They might be a little distracted, and you do this, and it just felt weird. And also, I thought where the resistance has been found, and then we're going to open up the next deal, and it's like, it's you, bitch, because they can kind of see who knows what they can do. And she's there undercover for the resistance. So we'll see. We'll see how it is. But at the end, it says next wedding bells.
Which is crazy.
The solicit for this issue did say that Carol is going to end up getting the strength to do what she'd never be able to do.
I forgot about Carol getting married.
And I think that it's one of those, they were engaged. We never really played, but I think that you might get to the Kyle stuff with the Star Sapphire mixed in. She's crazed up in love now. And it's like, we got to get married today. And because of the spectrum, I don't know. It felt weird the way that Kyle went. And then you might have that with Carol. Or she might just say, I love Hal, and tries to go off to find him. I don't know. But it'd be kind of funny. But yeah, that's what it seems like, the wedding bells. And at this point, are people really going to, if she did get married, will people really get upset? Do you think it's been?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know.
People love Hal and Carol
together.
I know,
but I don't even know anymore. It's been so long, since we had a bunch of stuff like that I think they just shrugged their, because Hal always fucks up shit anyway. And it's just kind of weird. But we do have a backup. You give us the credits for that, and we'll jump into the Guy Gardner story here.
Guy's Bogus Lobo Adventure Part 1 is written by Jeremy Adams, art by Kevin McGuire, Rosemary Cheatham, and Dave Sharp. So Guy Gardner was sent on a mission to go and find a Lobo, and he's having no luck trying to find a Lobo until he hears about this, Wham, the the wrestling multiversal federation that we have going on in the background, while he's just sitting in the bar, just sort of, licking his wounds because he can't find fucking Lobo, who always wants to be seen. And in this wrestling, he finds out that one of the people's names is the main man. He's like, oh, I got you now. But because the Wham travels to doomed planets and stuff like that, they never know where they're going to end up. So he ends up going to Booster Gold, calling Booster Gold through Skeets. And Skeets tells him, hey, we know all about Wham. It's big in the 25th century. Hey, do you know in our current timeline where they're going to show up next? And Skeets tells him, and Booster's all upset that Guy didn't want to talk to him. And it's a weird thing because the way Kevin McGuire draws a lot of things here, it's almost like that faux style that, because you have them for all these JLI books that we have.
They'll always have them for the JLI to come back and do these characters.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing is, whenever I see it, he just looks, I don't know if it's the writing or the art, but whenever Booster is dealt with in this style anymore, every bit of character progression that Booster's ever had over all the decades, it's always just dummy. I need to get as much money as I can, promote everything Booster Gold.
It goes generic Booster.
I hate it. It goes generic everything. Even Guy Gardner, it seems like Guy's not bad at this.
At least he's not handsy.
Guy. Again, you say that. It was just Tom King's one deal where he's handsy.
I'm telling you. And he also Fire and Ice. He was handsy in that. That's what happens with him. These people go, but here's the thing. This backup's fun. Right? It's a fun thing. This is what I'm trying to explain why me and you don't like fun a lot. But it is directly from The Flash and Omega Bandman. We're going to get that. Yeah. And when we get to a point, I don't know, it even goes with this podcast and whatnot, where when he is tracking down Lobo, and I'm like, got to be a little more serious. We have a big Lobo thing going on in the House of Brainiac. I don't mind joking around or whatnot. But this was, like you said, it is almost like a generic, but over-the-top generic version of the characters. It's fine.
I hate the wrestling across the multiverse.
People loved it. We didn't quite love where you're just playing that up here, and it just makes it a goof. And I kind of wanted a little more with that, especially when the shit that's going on in the front up is balls to the wall like crazy shit. And Guy, in the way they're playing it, would have been sent away to be murdered. And I think we'll get to that because this is a couple parts. But at this point, it's just for laughs. You get Kevin McGuire there. That's classic. But yeah, I wish there was a little bit more than goofs here. And the main man wrestler and the Wham. And I know that people are this is probably their favorite thing of the week. But
again, it probably is. And I just don't like wrestling across the multiverse or the Omega Bandman for how
and you love wrestling. That's one of your favorite things. So,
but even the way he was presented in the Flash book, where it's like, oh, we're this time area where here he can take on the Anti-Monitor, Mr. Atom, and Titano all at the same time. Like he's the most powerful being in the universe. He's just pretty much a Hulk Hogan wannabe, and it just drives me nuts how goofy he is because it never really brings anything. It makes everybody else look worse in my mind.
While Guy's doing wham bam, thank you, ma'am, wrestling, you have Kelly who's being expected. You gotta get going.
It's a weird tone change. Yeah, I agree.
But what would you give this?
The thing is, I am not a fan of this backup. I'm glad we got Lobo because whatever that's going to be. And the main story, it was just the idea of the way the story was told, where everybody's not telling anybody anything until it's convenient. It's very clunky the way it's told, and I really felt distracted. But the ideas behind it, with what's going on with Kyle even being a weepy bitch for whatever reason, the idea that we're experimenting, these are cool things that be callbacks to what these characters dealt with before to give them a new status quo going forward, which I really look forward to. It's just I wasn't a huge fan of this overall, but there's still a lot of cool stuff to it. So a 6 out of 10.
I'm a 6.5.
Weird science
is the revolution.